What's up, YouTube? It's the action figure grader, also known as John, back for yet another video. I promise this is the last video of the day. But I was sitting up this morning way too early, trying to think of a good topic for a video. And one topic that I thought you might find interesting is how to identify mint on card figures that have not been graded yet, and then that are good enough quality for submitting for grading to either AFA, UKG, CAS, whatever you want to, whatever grading company you want to use. And I learned a lot over the last few years, let's call it last 3 or 4 years, in my purchase habits and my buying decisions, and I've made a lot of mistakes. And I thought that it would be good to kind of go through kind of a history in visual format. Ta-da! Of some of the mistakes I've made over the years and how I've improved quite a bit with my buying of mint on card ungraded figures that I then submit for grading, and how to get better scores with your purchases from the grading companies and things like that. So, I'm going to go kind of left to right, and this will just be a kind of an overview of how my collecting used to be versus what it's like now. And hopefully you'll learn something from it as it relates to your own collection and your own purchase decisions. I'm going to use eBay as the source for all of these. I did buy some of these not from eBay, but I wanted to use. I'm using eBay as the example and for my buying tips, because that's the biggest supplier of action figures in terms of readily available and easily identifiable, and easiest way to acquire. So let's start first with the figure I've covered yesterday. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here. This Bosk 1981, 1982-ish, Empire Strikes Back, 32 back. So when I decided to get into mint on card figures, I started with Star Wars because that's my number one passion is Star Wars, and I had no idea what grading was, or how to identify good figures that are mint on card, how to assess condition very well. And so this is one that I bought kind of spur of the moment. It was my very first mint on card purchase, other than modern figures, but I'm talking vintage figures now. In terms of vintage figures, this was my very first purchase. I saw it for sale. It was a buy it now, and I was like, cool, man. Oh, awesome, dude. I get a Bosk mint on card. Awesome. Well, look at it. Just look at it. It's hideous. The packaging is in terrible shape, which I've covered at length. I won't go into too much here, but you can see all the veining. Someone tried to peel off the sticker. The figure itself is in great condition. I love the artwork, of course, photograph. But the actual figure, the packaging itself is in really rough condition. But I didn't know what I was doing. This was many years ago, way too long ago. And this is how I started. This is like, okay, cool, man, I got a mint on card Bosk. And then the more I started digging in and start searching on eBay and looking at different products, I was like, whoa, there's figures that are sealed in a case and they got a score. How cool is that, man? So I started looking more into AFA graded figures. And the more I looked into them, I was like, wow, they're kind of expensive. So, I quickly realized that I overpaid for this thing. And it's still in my collection, obviously. As I talked about, I might submit it for uncirculated grading. But it's yet another good example of mistakes I've made in the past purchasing decisions by not vetting, not doing my homework, not doing my research, and buying an inferior product at a overinflated price. So that's how I kind of started with my mint on card figures. Then I started digging in. I was like, okay, cool, man. I'm going to start buying action figures and then submitting to the grading companies. Yeah, it's going to be cool, and I'm going to save money by buying action figures and submitting them to the grading company and getting them back. And that way I don't have to buy figures that are already graded and they already have that premium attached to it because they have a good condition. So then I started buying, G.I. Joe is my other passion. Here's a couple of examples. I got a 1984 Series 3 blowtorch, and then I have a 1986 Takara-backed Japanese Firefly. Two of my favorite figures from the G.I. Joe line. Well, these were two of my very, very first purchases for grading. And, again, I still didn't understand how to assess damage and how to assess value. But I knew enough now to look for damage on the cards and to not overpay for a mint on card ungraded figure. And you can see, especially with the blowtorch, you can see the damage. There's someone tried to peel off the sticker, which was kind of dumb. The rest of the card itself is actually in pretty good shape, but because that sticker has been peeled off, that really hurts the card subgrade, which I'll show you in a second. And like I said, the rest of the card's in great shape. Very flat, very clean, hardly any dings on the corners, but and then on the back you can see it's in great shape. But again, I didn't know what the AFA looks for, and this is a big negative. They would rather you leave the original price sticker on there. They do not ding you if you have the original price sticker on there, but if you try to peel it off like that and it causes card damage like this one, they're going to ding you. And the highest grade they will give you for a card that has the price sticker peeled off with damage is a 70, and that's what holds this figure back. It's a bubble 80, which is a pretty good score, and then a figure 85 score, which is an excellent score. But because of that, I only got a 70 overall, and it should be a 70 overall. It's got quite a bit of damage to that area. And if I had known that, what the grading companies look for, I never would have bought that. And I paid a lot of money for it. I think I probably paid $300 for it, which is way more than it should have been. And it's my own fault. So that was a good lesson as well. So okay, well, I didn't know that, and when I submitted this a while ago, that 70 score is not great, but it's still nice enough. It's a nice enough figure. The bubble's nice. The figure's obviously great shape, and the rest of the artwork is great. So I keep it in my collection. I don't think I'll ever get an upgraded figure, so to speak. Maybe I will, but it's a nice figure. A more subtle example of what I'm trying to talk about is this Firefly. This is a beautiful figure. I love the artwork, and the figure. Firefly is just an awesome. He's the Cobra Saboteur. He's got that awesome grease gun, and it came with a cell phone. My brother still has a cell phone that kind of looks like that, by the way. He just has not joined the 2018 population with a cell phone. But anyway, the reason this has also got a 70. Well, why did it get a 70? This thing looks like it's in pretty good shape. Well, there's a couple of less obvious problems with this card than there were for Blowtorch. And the problems with this one is the bubble that's holding this figure on. You can kind of see it right there in the corner there. This bubble is starting to peel off a little bit just due to age and the glue coming loose. And so that's a big negative. Up here at the top, which I'll try and zoom in here, you can see where there's a bad crease, and it might actually be torn all the way through. The case is actually holding that together. Those are things that I didn't know as much about. I should have before I started buying, so hopefully you don't make that mistake. The other thing I'll point out is with this bubble, you can kind of see right in the light here. See how all that's starting to peel off? Well, the grading companies detract your score for that. And so that, again, the card got a 70, the bubble got a 75, which is not great, but not terrible either. And then the figure got an 80. And the third reason that this figure probably got an 80 is I think that the rubber band is coming loose on this one. You can see how loosey-goosey he is. And, what I've covered in other videos is that sometimes those rubber bands will snap. The highest grade that that AFA will give a carded mint on card sealed G.I. Joe where the rubber band has already snapped and it's obvious that it snapped is a 70. So this one did get an 80. So I think because it has not snapped yet. But it's loosey-goosey. You can kind of see in his waistline there that he's just kind of sitting a little cockeyed there. He looks like Firefly looks like he had one too many shots of Fireball, if you know what I mean. So I think that's what detracted the score. But I think the main reason this thing is still a 70 is because of the card. And that tear up there on the peg hole, that's something I probably should have known, or if I didn't know, I should have asked the seller about it or zoomed in on the photos more closely. So that's what really hurt that. On the back of the card, there is some staining. These white Takara backs, they don't do well with sun damage. And there's also a small crease down here in the corner you can kind of see. So these are all things that I could have avoided. And I didn't pay that much for this one, luckily. These go for about $200, give or take, $180 to $200. if they're mint on card and in good shape. I paid it. I think I paid about 100, 110, somewhere in there. So I didn't pay a ton for it, and there's a reason why. You know, it's a 70 grade. It's not a great grade. It's not terrible, but it's not great. So, you know, these are two examples of one subtle, one not so subtle mistakes that I made in my purchasing that could have been avoided, and I could have spent that money on better, higher quality figures and gotten better graded figures back when they came back from the AFA. So now let's talk about today. Well, these are two figures that I just got back from AFA. I purchased these mint on card, ungraded. Both of them received 85s. I've covered the bat before. I don't think this deserves an 85, but it did come back an 85. It's got a lot of scuffing. I'll see if I can catch it in the light here. It's got a lot of scuffing right around the chest piece. You can kind of see it right there. And I don't think this is an 85 figure personally, but you know, they gave the bubble sub-score an 80. They gave 85s for the card and figures, and they gave an overall of 85, which I was surprised by, but I was happy with. And this mistake, I can't take any blame for that. The seller did not disclose that when I bought it. I should have asked. I should have asked about it, but I didn't. A better, you know, a even more recent purchase. I bought this, let's see, about 3 months ago. It's been 2 months in grading, but this is Shockwave, and it's very similar to the wide scope figure that I talked about in another video. You can see, just for comparison, you can see that they both have the same urban camouflage, almost the exact same outfit. You can see why I mistaked wide scope to be an update of Shockwave. It's a very, very similar figure. But nevertheless, this Shockwave I did purchase mint on card. I got a great deal on it. I think I paid $75 for it. And mint on card, 85 grade, this is an 85 grade. A mint on card Shockwave goes for about $300. So 70 plus, you know, roughly 40 of grading. I've got about 110 into it versus buying one that's an 85 already graded for 300. I think I'll take the former, thank you. But you know, these two are examples of recent purchases where I really did my homework. I zoomed in a lot on the photos. I asked. I did not ask about this bubble, although I think that the seller in this case was a little bit fraudulent because he caught it in the right light, so you couldn't see the scratches on the front. But I did ask a lot of questions for both, and specifically, the seller of this Shockwave was great. I mean, he was very, very upfront. He thought that it was in great condition, and he was right. You know, it came back as an 85. I can tell you that I've submitted over the last 6 months probably, I don't know, 50 or 60 figures, and not one vintage figure that I've submitted recently has come back at less than an 80. And that is, to me, a testament of my purchasing habits improving, my purchasing decision-making improving. And I think that if you take some of those lessons to heart, and what are the main lessons? Well, the main lessons are zooming in on the eBay photos, asking questions of sellers. If the sellers don't answer your questions, don't buy from them. If the sellers only have one photo of the item and no close-ups or multiple angles of the item, don't buy from them. Get as much information as you can before you make your bid or you make your buy it now decision. And because I've taken more time, I've been more patient, and I have asked the right questions, my submissions, I don't know what that means. My submissions to AFA are coming back with higher scores. And as a result, I think I'm adding value to my collection by not overpaying for figures and getting figures back that once graded will command a premium if I ever had to sell them. So anyway, I hope this video wasn't too long, but I thought that it was helpful just to share some buying practices, some good habits to kind of instill in your own collecting. And I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.